Convicted Charleston Church shooter Dylann Roof has been sentenced to death by a federal jury in South Carolina. It only took jury members about 3 hours to decide on execution by lethal injection. This is the same jury that convicted Roof of murder and hate crimes for the 2015 church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, that took 9 lives of African Americans there, folks. Though the death sentence brings some closure to the families of the victims, they are still in pain.
This is a very hollow victory because my sister's still gone. I wish that this verdict could have brought her back, but it can't.
Joining us from Charleston via FaceTime is Associated Press political and legal affairs reporter Meg Kinnard, who covered the Roof trial. Meg, yesterday in court, there was something that Dylann Roof said that even shook you to your core. What was that?
Hey, good morning, Roland. Yes, yesterday when Dylann Roof took the time to address the jury for his own closing arguments, he said he still felt that he had to commit these heinous crimes. He hasn't said much in court, as you know. He's represented himself, and he's not done any cross-examination of any of the government's witnesses. But he was resolute and unapologetic and unremorseful, and said he still felt compelled to commit these crimes if he had to do it all over again. I can't imagine having been a juror hearing that, nor can I imagine being one of the family members who've packed court for every single day of this trial.
And this has consistently been my belief, that this guy wants to be a martyr. That the moment he made that comment, the moment he said that he would do it again, it was as if there was any moment, if there was one juror sitting there who said, we'll listen to the family and spare his life, when he said that, the moment you tweeted that, others did, I said, that's guaranteeing he's getting the death penalty.
Sure, and also another thing that Dylann Roof said to the jury was that he knew that it would only take one of them to disagree. He knew this verdict had to be unanimous if he were to get a death sentence, but he didn't plead for it. He didn't say, and please don't sentence me to death, or please give me life in prison, or please spare me, I'm only 22 years old. All he made was that suggestion that I know it only takes one of you to disagree. Thank you very much, and left.
Well, the family members were obviously there. They were in the courtroom as well. Give us a sense, what was the reaction like? What did the room feel like when that jury came back and the judge read it, or even how did that even happen when they heard death? So was it, did the jury foreman say it? Did the judge say it? What did the room feel like?
Sure. The procedure was the jury foreman handed the jury's verdict form up to the clerk, who then read it aloud or published it to the court. There was a whole lot of stuff she read through in the beginning, procedural stuff through all of the counts, things like that. But once she finally got to the pronouncement of a death sentence, there was a sense of relief, like you and I talked about after the verdict itself. There were no cries, there was not a whole lot of audible reaction. And the judge, before the jury came back in for the verdict, made it clear that he didn't want a whole lot of noise. He wanted to maintain decorum in the courtroom, and everybody seemed to follow that. You know, I'm glad you mentioned the families, because there's been a lot of attention on this verdict. That's the first death sentence for federal hate crimes. Obviously, this has affected and been watched by a whole lot of people. But yesterday, I also put out a piece focusing on the victims, on what their family members said about them. And I think that that's where we all really need to be focusing. These are 9 people who were gunned down in their place of worship, a place they felt safe, while they had their eyes closed as they prayed. This has ripped a huge wound, not only in their families, but also in the city of Charleston, the state of South Carolina, and anity else who's been paying attention to this. And I think now it is time that we acknowledge this sentence for what it is and look toward these families who hopefully can start to find some peace in all this.
All right, Meg Kinnard, Associated Press, we certainly appreciate you joining us and certainly covering this trial. Thanks a lot.
Sure, Roland, thank you.
All right, then, reaction from our panel. Scott, this guy wants to be a martyr.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When he fired his lawyers for the sentencing phase, that's what kind of confirmed him wanting to be a martyr. I want to remind your viewers that Dylann Roof used 75 rounds to shoot these 9 people. Now, I'm no advocate for the death penalty, but I certainly don't want to put him in jail for 30, 40, 50 years and pay for his racial hatred. And so in this case, this was a verdict and a sentencing that was due, had to be done. And I don't know if it's going to heal the community. It certainly won't bring back the victims. But this is a deeply troubled young man full of racial hatred. And this death penalty or the death decision was appropriate.
You know, I would agree with Scott, but I would also say, though, that we can't take our eye off the larger issues. This is why Jeff Sessions is so important in this confirmation thing for Attorney General. You know, Dylann Roof clearly wanted to be a martyr. Think back to Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City. These guys want to be martyrs, but he has the courage of his convictions. The rule of law, okay, so now we get the death penalty. That's quote-unquote easy. What happens when an Attorney General decides to go after somebody else for a hate crime, but it becomes somebody black or brown? And now what you've done is separate the rule of law from passion. Now, you know, when you see Steve Bannon, when you see these guys, this alt-right community with this hype thing, they can use this as a recruiting tool.
Yeah, I don't think that we should combine the alt-right movement, which is deplorable.
I think we absolutely have to.
Deplorable, or the conservative movement with this issue.
Hold on. On this show, the alt-right, we don't use that phrase. It's white supremacists.
Thank you.
It's white nationalists. That's what they are. I don't use the cute term. Go ahead.
Fair enough. I don't think we should include that group of people with Senator Jeff Sessions, who has said that he's prosecuted the Klan. He's ended single-member districts that would harm African-American voters. And he's also supported integration during that time in Alabama.
Liz,
but
that's pure
Dylann
spin.
Roof,
That's pure spin. It's not backed up by the facts.
It's factual. Dylann Roof is a murderer. He has pure hatred in his heart. He states that hatred. And you should not compare him to Senator Sessions. No, I do not. I do not see the slippery slope. And you should stop doing that. And this is what I'm talking about with Democrats who always hypersensitive with racial.
Okay, hold up.
That's wrong.
Hold up.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.